Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Block Research Podcast. I'm your host, Larry Cermak, CEO of the Block, and today we're joined by MegaETH founders, Shuyao Kong and Lei Yang. And we're going to be learning about what they're calling the first real-time blockchain. So first, guys, welcome to the show. Just quick question to kick things off. If you could just introduce MegaETH to your audience and briefly tell us the story of how you guys met and how you guys got started, that would be a great way to kick off the show.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, MegaETH is the first real-time blockchain. What differentiated us isn't just a super high throughput, which is 100,000, but really our low latency, which is around 10 milliseconds. So when you have a real-time blockchain, you can also have a real-time application. A real-time application basically has performance that's on par to Web2 application, but with crypto-native primitives and crypto-native economics.
And if you look at, kind of the claims that you're making, right? So both about the latency as well as about the speed, it's basically what every blockchain is making, right? Obviously, the numbers vary slightly, but how are you guys accomplishing that? And if you can kind of remove as much of the marketing language as possible, and how do you differentiate yourself from others like Solana, like, Monad, or whatever other blockchain that is trying to make similar claims?
Right. So I would say the key differentiation comes from the architecture, where we are very proud in terms of sticking to just using one centralized sequencer at any given point of time for producing transactions, for running transactions, and for producing blocks. And the key effect of that design decision is that we minimize the number of nodes in the system that has to run through every single transaction, and that gives you the ability to just focus on this particular node and optimize it to the max. And it gives you really high throughput. And also by using just one centralized sequencer, we eliminate a component in traditional blockchains called consensus. And usually consensus involves a process of transmitting a message across the globe, if not multiple times. And that usually results in a block time or a latency of up to several hundred milliseconds. And because we don't do that, we can minimize the latency as much as we want, to the point of just the network latency from the user to the server and back.
And you mentioned obviously the centralized sequencer, which has been, some people obviously think that that's a big negative. You guys think it's a big positive. Can you talk about some of the drawbacks of that approach, but also why you actually went with that approach? When everyone else, mostly, all the other blockchains are going in the different direction, which is like, let's decentralize the sequencer as much as we can, at least over the long term. Can you talk about those design choices a little bit more?
I would say the design here, I would not call it a drawback. I would say that there is an inherent trade-off between decentralization and performance, right? So you can either have a really large network of nodes, hundreds of them, thousands of them, running through every single one of your blocks, coordinating using a consensus algorithm, or you can say use an architecture that MegaETH is using, which is a centralized sequencer. And also in between, there is various trade-off points. If you look at even those layer ones and off layer ones, they pick very different trade-off points as well. Because if you look at Solana, each individual server would be a bit beefier, and you would have a bit fewer servers in a system, and compared to Ethereum, right? So we are just picking kind of a one extreme end on this trade-off curve, which is to just maximize performance on every design decision that we are met with. So the effect here is basically, as I mentioned, really, really good performance, especially end-to-end latency. But yeah, the drawback is that, again, there's only one server producing blocks, so you need to kind of add back the security guarantees to our system. And the way we do that is by anchoring on Ethereum. We build as an Ethereum layer 2 by choice and by necessity. And because we set on Ethereum, we can inherit the decentralization and security of Ethereum for our settled blocks.
I would like to convert that researchy language back to fluffy marketing language by using an example. So when we talk about what real time is, right, the technical definition is end-to-end E2E latency. But in a normie example would be, every time we try to order an Uber and you see, they're trying to match you with the driver, you're trying to wait to see, how far the driver is. That's a freaking latency, and that hurts user experience. And we're seeing an exaggerated and worse version of that on blockchain. What MegaETH enable is that real time, right? Like you can know in real time where your car is, and you can know real time how much longer you're waiting. So it's actually unlocking. There is a fundamental unlock here from a user experience perspective, but also from a business use case perspective.
And when something's like really low latency or let's say even real time, don't you face the issue that people will abuse that system? Or how do you prevent people from just spamming it so much that, they're using it for use cases where maybe blockchain is not necessary, right? Like blockchain is not for everything. Some use cases are better for like centralized databases. How do you prevent that from happening?
Very good point. So here, I think it's kind of an orthogonal problem of like preventing those spammy transactions. So with that, we have proper fee mechanisms that will basically filter out those spam transactions, make it not economically viable for them to continue spamming. And also we have a kind of sophisticated real-time processing design in the sense that the spam transactions and the kind of the real legitimate transactions will go into different queues. And even if there's a huge backlog for spam transactions, your legitimate transactions will still get processed in almost real time.
That makes sense. In terms of, obviously you guys got backing from some amazing investors, especially on the angel side. How is that pitch, different from all the other blockchains? They're, for sure going after Kobe, Vitalik, and all the other ones, and telling them, please invest in my own blockchain. It's the best by far. Is it just the design choices, or is there also, a marketing element to this, a BD element? Like what actually resonated with some of these really high profile investors?
I think the golden ticket to getting these high profile angels was how reasonable our design choices are and how surprising that people realize no one has ever done it. Right? It's that realization that this makes sense, but hey, someone should have done it a long time ago. I'll go a bit into detail. So Vitalik was interesting because our design choice was actually written by him in his 2021 paper called Endgame. So in the Endgame article, he said that the endgame of a scalable Ethereum blockchain is one with relatively centralized block production, aka is our beefy fatty sequencer, and an extremely light decentralized validating network, which is our replica node, which is, you can run it on your mobile. And then we derive our security from Ethereum. It's an extremely heterogeneous network that he has articulated before. So it's like a no-brainer for him to see someone is doing this. And then some of the other high-profile angel, what really makes sense is that every investor knows that the only way to make money is to take extreme trade-off, an extreme approach. If you're mid-curving whatever you're doing, you are not getting the alpha, and you're probably not going to see your money 100x or 1,000x. So when we were pitching to the angel, we really were proud of having centralized sequencer. And I think that gives a lot of people comfort. I think lastly, when we're chatting with our lead investor, we are a team that's very honest and down to earth. We don't claim things that we can't do. And it's always, and Elon has, our CEO and co-founder, he has done a bunch of performance tests, which I actually recommend everyone to read. What it tells you is what exactly are the performance bottleneck of EVM blockchain. So if you read that white paper, you would know that there's something that we fundamentally understand, we excel at, and there's some things we are not. So that level of capability, I think, was extremely transparent and give our investor a lot of comfort.
That makes sense. And when talking to investors or public, obviously you guys are positioned more as a layer 2 project. So how would your design compare to other existing layer 2s like Arbitrum, Zk Sync, Starknet? Are you positioning completely differently? And also what are kind of your plans to introduce fraud proofs and other future elements to make it more sort of layer 2 complete?
I'll go first on the positioning. So I'm surprised that you said that we position as a layer 2, because if you ask most people actually do not know that we're layer 2, right?
Right.
And I would say we legit have ETH in our name. How can you not know? But on the other hand, I'm very happy that my positioning actually worked. We are not positioned against layer 2 at all, right? We are positioned against the other layer 1 who claim
Right.
to be performant and decentralized at the same time. Most of our builders actually came from Solana, right?
Right.
One of our SpotDex co-founder was a core contributor at Serum. So this is what we're really targeting for our ecosystem. Now Lei can go into the more technical differentiate how we're different from other layer 2, which I know this is a research podcast.
Yeah, I would say, I would just add to Shuyao's point in the sense that I think our mission, that when we set out to build MegaETH, our mission is just build the fastest blockchain possible. And that necessitates a centralized sequencer. And then that design choice necessitates us kind of building as a layer 2. But yeah, so just to kind of add a technical aspect of that convo. So kind of the real design differentiation from other layer 2s, again, it's mostly a centralized sequencer, because as far as I know, most layer 2s, they kind of plan to decentralize their sequencer network in one way or another. And by doing that, most layer 2s plan to reintroduce what's called a consensus algorithm. And I mentioned that it usually brings up your block time to at least several hundred milliseconds, which we think will hurt user experience for those really latency critical applications. But for us, the approach for us to kind of bring decentralized participation is not by bringing back consensus. Instead, we plan to use something called a rotating sequencer design, in the sense that you have multiple replicas of your sequencer, and it can be semi-permission, it can be proof of authority, or it can be kind of proof of track record. But once your server is in this kind of committee, in this kind of cohort, then the role of the active sequencer, which is the person that is actually running the transactions at the moment, will rotate across these candidates. And recall that at any given point in time, there's still only one sequencer running the transaction. You just rotate that role across the nodes, so you still enjoy the benefit of almost minimized block time and latency, and also the high throughput. So I would say that's the kind of the key design decision. And of course, in terms of the engineering work that we're focusing on, we're focusing a lot on improving the execution layer stack, and basically how to make EVM run faster, how to make stake access faster, which I think is kind of a unique focus in the layer 2 industry.
A quick question for you, Shuyao, is when you think about something that's real time, a blockchain, new use cases that are enabled, are there any applications that you think would be kind of a complete no-brainer compared to what's possible on Ethereum, Solana, or other blockchains today? What do you think are kind of the killer use cases that are possible?
Yeah, there are 2 use cases that I keep mentioning because I'm so passionate about them, and I think I would use them. The first one is autonomous world. And by the way, for the record, I even chatted with Kyle Samani during a Medici event. Even he was like, yeah, there's something there. So there's some extra confirmation from someone who's on the opposite side of Ethereum. I think autonomous world is the most crypto native use case that can destigmatize crypto. Right? Think about a fully on-chain Minecraft. You might think, why would I need Minecraft to be on-chain? I think it's quite the opposite. I think fully on-chain Minecraft, where you have a permissionless ecosystem that anyone can write a smart contract, you can turn anything into an asset, you could dramatize your entire world, you can have a DAO that's hoarding bridges and charge you money to go through, you can accumulate wood and the wood becomes a rooftop, right? It is a real digital economy that's open. And this economy can only run on MegaETH because of our latency. So right now, the autonomous world engine is a very niche group of people. They're often on OP stack, right? But because of the OP stack tech limit, there is no washout. So it significant impacts the user experience. And a project as part of Mega Mafia, our builders program, they can't have more than 50 people play the Minecraft at the same time. Right? That's practically like the product doesn't work. MegaETH is the only environment for them to have massive scale of people playing at the same time. The second one I'm personally passionate about is a decentralized VPN. The current VPNs, the top 6 VPNs are controlled by 2 companies in the world. They're being actively sued by nation state, right? Because they steal your data. And a decentralized VPN, because you are leveraging a bootstrapped people's network around the world, you can actually mask people's data and ensure privacy. But what's beautiful about MegaETH is because our latency is so low, you are not sacrificing performance. And I genuinely think that everyone deserves a privacy-focused VPN. So these are the 2 things, like, I am so proud our ecosystem are working with these application builders, because I think people will actually use them and feel like, crypto isn't just about meme coin trading. But we love meme coin trading too. There's other aspects.
And how do you think about, kind of the disbalance between layer 1, layer 2 valuations and then consumer applications that, generally don't actually get that much adoption and therefore slightly less builder interest? Like, how are you guys balancing that? You mentioned Mega Mafia. So if you can maybe talk a little bit about the idea of that, and which projects so far came out of it, and also how do you get people excited to build applications versus just another blockchain or another layer 2? I mean, it must be insanely hard.
Yeah, I know it's freaking hard. I think there are 2 steps. The first one is you need to find the right people who are not here to grift. And to do that, my hypothesis, our guiding principle is you need to live with people. So if you look at how MegaETH has done with a developer go-to-market, I basically fly people to a place. So in May, we all flew to Berlin. I rented a hotel. We work extensively during the weekdays, and then we go party on the weekend. And during that 1 month, right? And I could tell the character of each builder, like, are you here to do this thing 5 years, or you're here, launch a pump.fun fork and then go live your life, right? You can kind of tell that character. And similarly, what I'm doing here at MegaZoo is with 50 more builders and doing something exactly the same, right? So I think using this in-person co-building, co-living, you can filter out the grifters. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is really unleashing creativity. I think most people want to build application. Like, no one is excited about building more blocks. Like, let's face it, right? Other than my co-founders who are giga nerds from Stanford and MIT, like normal people like me, small brain people like me, I don't want to build more blocks. What I'm really excited about are wacky, novel use cases. But that requires you to actually have creativity, right? Like this whole thing about autonomous world, decentralized VPN, or we have a game show that leverages meme coin. We have a super interesting Robinhood-like trading application. All of these ideas came from me and my team because we're extremely crypto native and we love to think outside the box, right? I think the other part is we need to have the courage and dare to do things using blockchain. For example, one of the projects that's as part of Mega Mafia is a decentralized Luma. I'm not doing them justice here because what the fuck is decentralized Luma? But you have to have the courage to think outside the box to put the events onto the blockchain. So what does it really mean, right? It means like every time you interact with an event, for example, what if you start accumulate token? That token gives you very granular inputs of your relationship with certain events. What if you're going to an event, right? You can swipe left and right with people and start meeting people. And these are not, there's way more interesting than just like token gated events, right? Like, or giving you a POAP, because what are you going to do after that? But even more important, this application, by the way, it's called Lemonade. They've built an API that allow any crypto company to insert a crypto native event page onto their website. So what I think we should do is really force everything to use the blockchain, because why not? MegaETH has enabled the performance to be here, right? Let's just innovate on the crypto nativeness. Let's innovate on the tokenomics side. Let's innovate on the user experience. The last one I would emphasize is there's a project called Funes. They are turning people's camera or drones pictures into a 3D model. And then they can either display this 3D model as an on-chain open source museum, or they can sell this 3D model to gaming engines. So for example, Black Wukong, right? The game that got the highest number of Steam users this past quarter, they were using exactly the same 3D model to train their in-game world. And crypto is a perfect way to bootstrap that creativity and keeping a permanent record of the real world on-chain. The founding teams are archaeologists, strong founders, game developers, right? Like, I think we need this type of people to come on and build things that no one has ever thought about before.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. And how are you guys thinking about balancing, user experience and kind of using some of these applications, right? Like, Lei, do you think that eventually people of these applications will even know that they're using MegaETH or they're using Monad or Solana or something? Or is the point to eventually, have our parents to not, use these applications, but not even know which infrastructure are they using?
I would hope the latter. I would hope that there's no more the kind of the conscious process of like opening up a wallet, setting up a key pair, and kind of doing wallet connect and stuff, right? But on the other hand, I do hope that when they use some applications, the Mega Mafia applications and the other applications built on MegaETH, they will kind of experience the slightly better user experience. It's the slightly more kind of snappiness and kind of more consistent, and also more consistent snappiness. And kind of I need that to kind of be preserved.
So, Shuyao, how do you guys manage expectations between, kind of the excitement and the reality? I'm sure there's a lot of people that are thinking like, wow, really impressive angels. This project, like, is super exciting. Let me try to like eventually pre-farm it as much as possible. How do I actually make money out of this? How do you specifically manage that expectation of like, people's almost, wanting to make money, but at the same time, like actually still want, native users? I think that would be one of the hardest things for someone like you to actually do.
Yeah, you'd be surprised that I don't get a lot of people like retail excitement yet.
Really?
Not really. And I think it probably has something to do with how I manage community in the very beginning. If you go to our Discord, a lot of people have mentioned or even tweeted that our Discord is really wholesome. There's nothing speculative about anything. I'm basically, I sometimes, have a surprise hangout with people for Mega Zoo, right? Like meeting with the builders. Sometimes we play chess game. There's some technical discussion, some food discussion. So it's extremely wholesome. So I have not experienced that trouble of like people wanting speculation from us. But I think to answer your question, right? Like I think in the future, yes, a lot of the community will come with a lot of agenda. My hope is those agenda will direct to our applications. I think the age of chain, farming anyone or even the chain being farmed by developers are gone. I think we are trying to direct all attention to our applications. Even the usage, right? I think the usage on chain is almost like not important at all. It's really just usage on specific dApp. And part of what we're trying to do, even you can see on Discord, was hang out with our dApp Discord. So we oftentimes have like AMA with GTE or AMA with Valhalla. So we're directing everything to Mega Mafia.
That makes sense. Obviously, if you look at the top 20 projects based, sorted by market cap or FDV, it's almost all layer ones, right? It's, like Solana, Avalanche, Tron, so many blockchains there, just pure layer ones. Now, you guys are kind of in between, right? To your point before, you are layer two, but competing really against layer ones. Do you think that from a valuation perspective, but more so about like success of people actually wanting to use the blockchain, is it important that like layer twos are not doing as well as layer ones? Like one example, there will be Scroll, which launched a couple of days ago. it's trading at a sub-billion-dollar valuation, right? Which like no one would really guess if I asked them a year ago. Everyone would have thought some of these layer twos are now trading below some of the private rounds that happened before. Is that something that you're like thinking about a little bit, or are you just not concerned about that at all, and mostly just like want to compete against the layer ones?
We don't think about that at all. We think the right thing to do is to be a layer one from a technical perspective. The right thing to do is to change the public consciousness between the arbitrary line between layer one and layer two. I think the public needs to be educated on this mimetic value. And then second of all is, I don't even think it matters to developers. Really good developers care about what the platform really provides, right? What really is that unlock? If you're just a random layer one, good developers would not go. For example, there is another fast layer one blockchain. The founder lamented one day to me, and he said to me, he's like, you know what? My biggest issue is smart developers don't come to me at all. Because despite I have a high FDV, they know that they're not going to get real users. So I always believe that we as a team believe that doing the right thing is our architecture. And we believe that if we do the right marketing and community building, we can change the law of physics, which is layer two valuation is bigger than layer one.
That's a good answer. And then you touched a little bit on marketing. I remember you had a tweet after ETHCC this year where you kind of compared some of the sponsorship items that other projects have paid to be at the conference itself, and instead you guys did a couple of side events for much lower prices, which you said were a lot more effective. Is that still something that you kind of stand by, just to be doing these more like community meetups, cool things that people want to attend versus like just spending a lot of dollars for useless banners and Wi-Fi names?
Absolutely, yes. We spend a lot of, not even money, we spend a lot of mental power in designing our swags. Our MegaETH hats, our drops are extremely limited. They're very expensive. Every shirt that we've produced costs $20, guys. So if you got those shirts, actually got tier quality. So I have to attribute all the work to my amazing DevRel. So I told him I have very limited budget. We are a small protocol, and I want an experience that just wow people. That's high quality, and he's been able to deliver that. Even for the DevCon, alpha to the Larry's audience, we are hosting a amazing day called World Computer Day. So we are bringing the world computer back along with our friends and Eigen and Succinct, because you need commitment apps, you need high throughput data availability, you need cryptography, and you need a fast sequencer layer two like us. And the goal of that conference, again, isn't just another one people come and another networking event, but really a learning experience, a debating experiences, and it's almost like a Davos type of long dinner experiences.
Lei, what are some milestones that you guys have, in the next year or so when it comes to, leading up to MegaETH's testnet as well as eventual mainnet? Like, what are some of the biggest hurdles, things that you're looking forward to most to accomplish?
Right. So I would say that engineering has been progressing quite well so far, and I think what's lined up in front of us before the mainnet is mostly like getting the stack audited, and also we are kind of finishing this integration between OP stack and our in-house highly optimized version of Ref. And this integration has been kind of one of the most interesting part of this job, because it's like a cat and mouse game. So we improve Ref, and then OP stack lags behind, and then we improve OP stack, and then Ref lags behind, and vice versa. So by kind of doing this cat and mouse chasing, we're kind of improving the performance, especially the throughput on both stacks, step by step, and kind of seeing that progress, and also just seeing that kind of anticipating that to kind of progress all the way to 100K TPS is probably the most exciting thing that I would look forward to. In parallel, we're also kind of doing this. I think it's kind of an industry first streaming EVM, in the sense that your EVM, when it builds blocks, it never stops. Whenever a transaction comes, it runs it in real time and gives you the feedback, the receipt, the RPC responses in real time. And integrating that very important component into our existing stack would also be quite interesting and would truly enable sub 10 millisecond, even sub millisecond execution time and block time, right? And yeah, so that's probably it. And also, we're also looking at kind of the broader category of real-time infrastructure, like real-time indexer, real-time RPC, and real-time wallets and stuff. So I think once we are after mainnet, we'll have much more bandwidth to kind of explore all these initiatives, and I kind of look forward to that as well.
Cool. And one more question for you, Shuyao. Do you think that other blockchains, if your approach really works, and you know it is a very scalable real time system, is there any point in some of the other layer ones that exist today, or you know, will there be a world where all of these like happily live together, and there's no competition for users?
I think there is always competition for users, and I love competition. I think that's the only way that everyone improves. And as you know, what Hazib used to say, we gotta love the blockchain, right? But we need to love the right and the good blockchain. I don't think as layer one, your job is to be performance. I think as a layer one, your job is to be decentralized. And that's where the premium is, and that's where the money is, right? Like, I suppose I asked Larry, like, in the next 20 years, you're going to turn into sleeping beauty. You're going to sleep for 20 years. Where would you put your money, right?
In crypto itself, I'm probably just Bitcoin and ETH, honestly, as of today.
I think so. And I think that's the point of having the premium that Ethereum has, right? And I think none of the other layer two matters because you can't have people comfortably put money there and go to sleep for 20 years.
Yeah.
And that's where MegaETH makes sense because we never have to worry about decentralization. All we need to do is being like crazy fast and crazy real time. So we believe that in the future, all the chains will look at MegaETH, right? It would derive security from someone like Ethereum, and you really prioritize some performance. If one day MegaETH disappoints our developers because we didn't optimize our sequencer, I genuinely hope someone else do something better.
And do you think users go simply, you know, like how do users choose a blockchain they go to, right? Like over the last probably 12 months, there's been a lot of new users going to Solana for, you know, trading memes and whatever. That's not, you know, I'm guessing it's partially because the blockchain is cheap, but it's not because it's the best blockchain that exists, right? So there's also a marketing element and then also some sort of an app element, onboarding element. How do you fix that yourself as well? Like how do you make sure that a blockchain that's maybe not as performant doesn't win simply because they just have better onboarding?
Yeah, I think it really takes time. I think the current meme coin craze is fantastic, right? I mean, people at Megas will also ape into random coins. It's just like, if you're crypto native, it's hard for you not to do that. It's almost part of our daily life. But I do think from a long-term perspective, really tamper-proof and censorship-resistant chains will eventually win. I think the world is a very dangerous and fragile place. And I think it just takes one Black Swan event for us to realize, you know, what is fundamentally important. I'm not a doomsday person, but I always think that doing the right thing, you'll always have the right result. But in the meantime, I celebrate every blockchain that is getting users. And the other thing I would like to add is I agree with you, technology doesn't always win. There's a lot about community. There's a lot about distribution channel, right? If you think about what Base has done, you think about a lot of the layer two that focus on RWA. I think they are amplifying their distribution channel by focusing on one thing. What MegaETH does is we're having a general purpose chain that's fundamentally different. So everyone else can optimize different distribution channel on top of MegaETH, right? Imagine MegaETH turning into an operating system one day, right? So I think there's like a lot of room for you to imagine on MegaETH rather than just being in a very specialized blockchain.
I have one closing question for both of you, since we're running out of time. But let's imagine you're not a sleeping beauty, but you have a time machine, and you go back 5 years into the future, and you look back on what you've done at MegaETH. What do you think would make you happy if you look back in 5 years and you say, okay, shit, like this actually was amazing and it's a huge success? What are some of those things that you would love to accomplish in the next 5 years?
I'll go first. I really care about Mega Mafia. if I have some of the Market Mafia members who build successful application that people derive emotional value from, not just mimetic or financial value, family connect each other because of MegaETH application, or your data are protected because of MegaETH application, I think I will be very happy.
For me, from a technical perspective, I would hope that people will call MegaETH the iPhone moment of crypto. I mean, it's a cliche, but yes, that would make me really happy. But on a more serious note, I hope people just do random shit on MegaETH, not really worrying about that it's a blockchain, not worrying about the gas fee they have to pay because it's so cheap, not worrying about like sacrificing user interface because it's so fast. I just hope that people can use MegaETH as their living room computer, and if they do, then I'll be really happy.
Amazing.
But we're doing a world computer, by the way.
Well, this has been really helpful. I thank you guys for walking us through that, explaining everything, your patience with the questions. Thanks so much, and hope to have you guys on at some point in the future again.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for having us.
Thank you.